I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. It is Friday. We are on day 4 and the 14th roll call vote. This is history, and on a date that will live in infamy and history, January 6th, 2023, 2 years after the insurrection where MAGA Republican insurrectionists tried to overthrow our democracy, led by Donald Trump, a traitor and a fascist who occupied the Oval Office. On this 14th roll call vote, let me tell you what I expect to happen as you are watching the House floor right now as members of Congress come in. It is historical in the sense that a speaker has not lost on the first roll call vote since 1923. We are now on our 14th roll call vote. Kevin McCarthy has lost each and every roll call vote before, although there was positive developments, I suppose, for Kevin McCarthy in that the group of 21 defectors shrunk as we got into the 12th and into the 13th round, now down to 6 defectors only. And based on the reporting that we hear right now, we believe that Kevin McCarthy in this 14th roll call round will likely secure the speakership. We don't know that for sure, but I want to pull up right now a poster or a pamphlet being passed around by Tom Emmer, the majority whip elect. His job is to bring the votes together. He put this statement out. He's a Republican MAGA extremist from Minnesota's 6th congressional district, believing that the votes are going to happen now, and then the rule package vote is going to take place, leading into the early hours. But let's go to Cheryl Johnson, the clerk of the court, who calls this to order, the clerk of Congress.
Would you pray with me? Dear God, it seems this evening we may be at last standing at the threshold of a new Congress. I'm not done yet. Should we, with your blessing, find our way through the doorway this night, cause us to consider carefully what we have learned on the way. Turning to you each day, we asked for your help in our deliberations, and you answered us. But your answer was to allow us to suffer the anxiety, uncertainty, and aggravation that follows when we choose to allow healthy debate to devolve into contentious and unproductive argument. And yet, in your mercy, you transformed this foray into discord into an opportunity to learn to find common ground with unlikely partners. Would that this be a habit we continue. Remind us that while the spirit of dispute can be traced to our government's earliest days, we have served this country best when we sought to reconcile our differences with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. May we be more willing to wield these fruits of your spirit in our future discourse with one another. We pray your continued mercy on us. May your anger with us last but a moment, and your favor a lifetime. And for all that we endure this night, allow joy to come in the morning. In the hope found in your name we pray. Amen.
So it is also being reported that Kevin McCarthy gave massive concessions to the MAGA extremists, basically giving away everything, allowing MAGA extremists to control everything to secure this vote.
The chair has examined the journal of the last day's proceedings and announces to the House the approval thereof. Representatives-elect are invited to join in the Pledge of Allegiance.
We will talk about those concessions that Kevin McCarthy agreed to shortly, but we believe he will secure the speakership on this 14th roll call vote. And then there will be debate over the rules package where a lot of those
For what purpose
concessions
does the
were made.
gentleman from North Carolina rise?
Madam Clerk, I'm honored to rise tonight to nominate my good friend, the gentleman from California, Kevin McCarthy, to serve as Speaker of the House.
The gentleman will suspend.
After holding our government hostage, these fascist clowns are clapping.
The gentleman will suspend. The question recurs upon the election of a speaker, and the tellers will please come forward and take their seats.
That was right.
Once they're seated, you can just say the gentleman's recognized on his nomination.
Here, give them sheets. These are other sheets.
And as the votes get count, we're going to pull up a chart for you that shows over the past 13 roll call votes who switched their votes. The arrows that you're looking at are the remaining 6 defectors. So the first thing I'm going to want you to look for B, Biggs, to see if Biggs is going to change from Jim Jordan to Kevin McCarthy here, which will be the sign, the first sign that Kevin McCarthy is going to secure the votes needed in this round to become Speaker. Go back to the floor.
The gentleman from California, Kevin McCarthy, to serve as Speaker of this House.
During these speeches, we see these MAGA fascists gaslight and continue to lie about Democrats, but we will call them out as they do that here.
Madam Clerk, it's been a long week, and a lot of attention's been placed upon us here in the House. But then again, I state that to the most famous woman in Washington this week. It was a better joke as written, actually, than delivered. But I want to start by thanking the men and women who make this House run. From the janitorial staff, to the parliamentarians, to the doorkeepers, to the sergeant of arms, to the Capitol Police officers, to the men and women that make this institution run, we thank you. And at this day, and a source of charity, we'd even thank the Capitol Press Corps for sitting on floors. That too was actually funnier on the paper than how it delivered. I don't know why you asked me to do this, Kevin. Look, the president has called this process an embarrassment. Talking heads have labeled this chaos and a mess, and some would call it shambolic even. But it's called democracy. And this is a hallmark of a free society where every voice and every vote counts.
This is the gaslighting you see where they're trying to act like what transpired was a good
We know
thing.
it's messy, but open and transparent debate is what sets us apart from authoritarian regimes. In order to outcompete our adversaries, we must adhere to the principles that make our nation, this nation, our constitutional republic, great. And that starts with a free and open exchange of ideas. And that's exactly what we've done this week. To some, it may have felt like Congress was on hold. But the alternative, a government that assembles with no input from the representatives elected by the people, is a far worse alternative. in these constitutional principles we're adhering to in this complicated process of setting up the House. Over these last few days, Kevin McCarthy has allowed this process to work among House Republicans, and he's empowered members to come together to find consensus on behalf of conservative policy and a greater involvement of all voices throughout our conference. We've all played a part. We have all played a part, whether it's the dean or members who've just been waiting for 4 days and voting loyally. It's Kevin's leadership style that's been lacking in this institution for too long. It's the same style Kevin employed with each of us as we developed our policy proposal, A Commitment to America, a plan that works to secure our border and stop the flow of fentanyl into our communities, to give Chairman Comer and Chairman Jordan the tools they need to hold the Biden administration accountable for their failures, and to take China on and end the president's COVID emergency powers that have been abused far too many times. To finally reopen the People's House, empower our standing committees, and get people back to regular order here on the House floor. And countless other conservative solutions that are
one of the
very powerful and
concessions
good
that
for
Kevin
constituents in
McCarthy agreed
Bakersville
to
or Lincolnton, North
is
Carolina.
allowing the House of
Madam Clerk,
Representatives to
I'm one of the few
default
members left
our
on the
debt.
Republican side who's had the
So
pleasure
Medicare
of
is
serving
now
with
at
Kevin for
risk
the
if
entirety of his tenure in the
there's a
House.
debt ceiling hike that
In those
must
years,
be
I've worked closely
paired
with
with
Kevin
spending cuts.
in
And
a
so
variety of different
one of the
capacities.
things that has now been agreed
And,
to is basically defaulting our debt.
he's a
So when
good
they
friend.
talk about all of this,
But
it's
serving
pure
with him in these
gaslighting. Let's go back to
capacities
House
has meant that I've heard every one of his stories. And the stories of Kevin O's Deli, I've heard way too many times. I don't know if you've heard that he won the lottery as well. Those stories, I could recount them chapter and verse. He's a dear friend. But all of you have heard these stories too. And it's also, by my seat, able to watch him on a front row seat as he's grown as a leader. And especially this week, how he's grown as a leader. He knows more about members than they know about themselves. If your spouse is sick, he may send flowers or fruit before I did on that story. But he cares so much about members, not for politics, but because he cares about people. He's unflinchingly optimistic. The glass is always half full. That's been a hell of a trait, especially this week.
Okay, is he really trying to do jokes right now?
quit.
I mean, he keeps on bombing jokes. There's absolutely is not the time for jokes. Hey, can we pull up the photo of Kevin McCarthy and Donald Trump? Because he absolutely does not quit trying to overthrow our democracy. Keep that up for a second so we can look at who these despicable traitors are right now. People who have tried to overthrow and are continuing to try to overthrow our democracy
that led
and attack
Republicans
our
back
allies
to the
abroad.
majority in this House. The only Republican institution in Washington this day. And Kevin has led us through these challenges the last few days. And Kevin is the right person to lead us over the coming 2 years. And that's why, at the direction of the Republican
They
conference,
talk about
I advanced
challenges
Kevin
like there's some
McCarthy as the next
challenges
Speaker
from the
of the United
outside
States House
force.
of Representatives.
You are the challenge. You are absolutely the challenge. And under the new concessions, it's just going to take one vote of one Republican to oust Kevin McCarthy. So get ready for what we saw this past week every single day for the next 2 years. Utterly humiliating.
For what purpose does the gentleman from California rise?
Madam Clerk, I rise to nominate Hakeem Jeffries for Speaker of the House.
Representative Pete Aguilar from California nominating the Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries.
gentleman is recognized.
House Democrats are united behind the son of a social worker and substance abuse counselor, a leader who is deeply involved in his community and a tireless advocate for the least, the lost, and the left behind. He is a voice for the people. And Madam Clerk, this is the people's house. Two years ago today, duly elected members of this body gathered here to certify the results of a free and fair election. And in doing so, we participated in a tradition that makes our democracy a marvel and the envy of the world, a peaceful transfer of power. But this body is more than a ceremonial chamber, Madam Clerk. This is a workplace where hundreds of men and women endure long, difficult hours before they punch out and go home to their families. Where good people come to work each day and maybe steal a quiet moment to themselves to look up at the ceiling or to look at the paintings, the statue of Abraham Lincoln, and to thank God for the blessings of liberty. Because this place is so much more than a chamber or even a workplace. It is, in Lincoln's words, a sign we intend the union shall go on. And I'm not just talking about the members either, Madam Clerk. I'm talking about you and your staff, the custodial staff, the floor staff, the institutional staff, our congressional staff, the sergeant at arms, our beloved chaplain, and the Capitol Police. I'm talking about the people who make this house work, the people who Hakeem Jeffries will never take for granted.
There's Hakeem Jeffries.
2 years ago, Madam Clerk, we witnessed this place under siege by a violent mob who desecrated this building and the other chamber. But this feels a little familiar. Today, we adjourned amidst utter confusion. Only this time, we're returning in the dark of night, not to cast a vote to bring this country together and to do our jobs, but one that will set the path toward division and default. So if we are forced to be here this evening because of the chaos and crisis on the other side, it's only fair to point out, Madam Clerk, that the same individuals who fanned the flames of January 6th, who told their followers and their followers' followers that they needed to fight back, and who challenged the swearing in of members based on a bogus claim of fake electors, may well be in charge of the People's House if they can ever agree on who can lead them.
Will the House be in order?
That's why House Democrats stand united behind Hakeem Jeffries. Hakeem is the only candidate in this race for Speaker who will defend this democracy. He is the only candidate in this race willing to call out the lie that the election was stolen. And he's the only candidate in this race who thinks that everyone involved on January 6th ought to be held accountable regardless of the positions they hold in power. For justice and truth, and in memory of the lives lost on January 6th, I nominate Hakeem Jeffries for Speaker of the House.
Powerful words by Representative Pete Aguilar of California. pointing out the same individuals who fanned the flames of January 6th may very well be in charge of the People's House based on the deal that Kevin McCarthy has struck, essentially giving all of these concessions to these insurrectionists. And by the way, Kevin McCarthy aiding and abetting the insurrection. We'll talk more about those concessions that Kevin McCarthy gave shortly, but let's watch the round of applause for that incredible speech by Pete Aguilar nominating Hakeem Jeffries. Voting will likely begin.
The reading clerk will call the roll.
This is the 14th roll call vote. We are going to pull up the chart for you to follow along with. The first major defector who I want you to be paying very close attention to when they go through the list is B, Biggs. All of the arrows you see now represent the remaining 6 defectors that exist based on the 13th roll call vote. Biggs, Boebert, Crane, Gates, Good, and Rosendale. So the first major defection that I think we want to focus on is Biggs. See if Biggs will go for McCarthy, which will signal that McCarthy likely will have the votes in this 14th roll call. So for those looking at home, those are the ones that you really want to focus on right here. Let's go back to the House floor.
McCarthy. Auchincloss. Jeffries. Madden. McCarthy. Bacon. McCarthy. Baird.
We will see it very shortly.
Balderson. McCarthy. Ballant. Jeffries. Banks. McCarthy. Barr. McCarthy. Berrigan. Jeffries. Bean of Florida. McCarthy. Beatty. Jeffries. Bent. McCarthy. Vera. Jeffries. Bergman. McCarthy. Byer.
Get ready.
Jeffries. Bice. McCarthy. Biggs. Jordan.
So Big still casts his vote for Jim
Ruckus.
Jordan. Kevin McCarthy looks a little concerned about that.
Bishop of Georgia.
I think McCarthy thought that whole crew was going to go McCarthy. Let's pull back
Bishop
up our
of
list
North
because
Carolina.
I think that one was a bit of a
McCarthy.
surprise right there. Let's pull up our chart.
Blumenauer. Jeffries.
So the next person we want to
Flat
focus on is
Rochester.
Lauren Boebert.
Jeffries.
And we'll
Boebert.
see if, here we go.
Present.
So Lauren Boebert by voting present there and everybody clapping and she's shaking her head. That will be helping McCarthy and likely help McCarthy secure it on the 14th roll call vote. But let's see.
Bonamici. Jeffries. Bost. McCarthy. Bowman. Jeffries.
McCarthy's still looking concerned right there.
Boyle, Pennsylvania. Jeffries. Rakeen. McCarthy. Brown. Jeffries.
Let's pull up our chart
Brown.
again.
Jeffries. Buchanan.
The next big one we want to
McCarthy.
focus on is Crane. Will Crane vote
Buck.
present? Will Crane vote McCarthy? Or will
Buck.
Crane vote Jordan? In the 13th roll call vote,
Bouchon.
Crane voted Jordan.
McCarthy.
Pay attention to that.
Baczynski.
Let's go back. to the
Jeffries. Burchett. McCarthy. Burgess. McCarthy. Burleson. McCarthy. Bush. Jeffries. Calvert. McCarthy. Kamek. McCarthy. Carabeo. Jeffries. Carbajal. Jeffries. Cardenas. Jeffries. Carey.
So McCarthy either needs
McCarthy.
one more yes from a holdout or
Carl.
two more presents from a holdout.
McCarthy. Carson. Jeffries. Carter of Georgia.
And the next thing we're going to focus on is Crane.
Carter of Louisiana. Jeffries. Carter of Texas. McCarthy. Cartwright. Jeffries. Kassar. Jeffries. Case. Jeffries. Caston. Jeffries. Castor of Florida. Jeffries. Castro of Texas. Jeffries. Chavez DeReamer. McCarthy. Sherfilis McCormick. Jeffries. Chu. Jeffries. Cicilline. Jeffries. Ciscovani. McCarthy. Clark of Massachusetts.
We're getting very close to Crane.
Jeffries. Clark of New York. Jeffries. Cleaver. Jeffries. Klein. McCarthy. Cloud. McCarthy. Clyburn. Clyburn. Jeffries. Clyde. McCarthy. Cohen. Jeffries. Cole. McCarthy. Collins. McCarthy. Comer. McCarthy. Connolly. Jeffries. Correa. Jeffries. Costa.
Gentleman from New York,
Jeffries. Courtney. Jeffries. Craig. Jeffries.
Here it comes.
Crane. Biggs. Crawford.
McCarthy looks worried with that vote. We'll see what
Crenshaw.
Gates does now.
McCarthy. Crockett.
With Boebert voting present,
Jeffries.
it brings down the vote
Crow.
threshold for McCarthy from 218 to 217. And then you had
Jeffries.
Biggs voting Jordan and Crane
Curtis.
voting Biggs.
McCarthy.
What
Davids
will
of
Gates do?
Kansas.
Let's pull up our chart.
Jeffries. Davidson.
Wow, the drama that is unfolding.
McCarthy.
Gates and Good and
Davis of
Rosendale
Illinois.
still remain. There would have to be
Jeffries.
2 more present or 1 more yes. for
Davis of
those
North
following
Carolina.
ahead.
Jeffries.
Will Gates, after everything
of
Gates
Pennsylvania.
said, hand it
Jeffries.
to McCarthy this round?
DeGette. Jeffries. Dela Cruz.
Texas's 15th Congressional District stands with Kevin McCarthy.
McCarthy. DeLauro. Jeffries. Delphine. Jeffries. DeLuzio. Jeffries. DeSaulnier. Jeffries. Desjardins.
After all of Gates' bluster
McCarthy.
and bravado, what will
D'Esposito.
Gates do? Gates still has the ability to hold this up, and Gates said McCarthy will never become the speaker.
McCarthy.
Will Gates hand it to him?
Dingle.
Let's see as we go alphabetically
Jeffries.
down to G.
Doggett. Jeffries.
McCarthy does look worried on the floor there.
McCarthy. Duarte.
Kevin McCarthy.
McCarthy. Duncan.
There we go. Sorry about that, folks. It's a pretty key time as we were going through the votes, but it's what happens when you're live sometimes. As you see, there's 3 votes for others, 1 vote present. We will keep following. At this stage, we still don't know the outcome. And again, apologies for the technical difficulties. Our producer, Salty, has done an incredible job, and to no fault of his own, where we keep all of our power. He lost power. But we are back in action. Let's bring you back to the C-SPAN screen right now, and we will follow what's going on the House floor.
Kildee. Jeffries. Kiley. McCarthy. Kilmer. Jeffries. Kim of California. McCarthy. Kim of New Jersey. Jeffries. Krishnamurthy. Jeffries. Custer. Jeffries. Kustoff. McCarthy. LaHood. McCarthy. LaLota. McCarthy. LaMalfa. McCarthy. Lamborn. McCarthy. Landsman. Jeffries.
So there we have the list, folks, of who we're looking for to see if they're going to be switching.
Larson of Washington. Jeffries. Larson of Connecticut. Jeffries. Latta.
Next important one we want to look for is Rosendale.
LaTurner.
Remember, previously Rosendale had said, I'm voting for Kevin
Lawler.
Hearn. But I'll tell you what, Kevin McCarthy is looking very nervous right now. I think Kevin McCarthy thought he had this completely locked up.
Jeffries.
Doesn't look to be the case yet.
McCarthy. Lee of Nevada.
And again, you were watching our 4th day of the historic coverage here of the speaker's race. We are on the 14th roll call vote. We had brief technical difficulties before. Power is now back.
McCarthy. Letlow. McCarthy. Levin. Jeffries. Liu. Jeffries. Lofgren. Jeffries. Loudermilk. McCarthy. Lucas. McCarthy. Lukemeyer. McCarthy. Luna. McCarthy. Luttrell. McCarthy. Lynch. Jeffries. Mace. McCarthy. Magaziner. Jeffries.
And so for those watching too, Matt Gaetz had skipped his vote.
McCarthy.
Matt Gaetz wants to be the
Mann.
deciding vote here, but we'll have to see what Rosendale does.
Manning.
If Rosendale gives it a yes, it's not going to be decisive. So
Massey.
we'll see what Rosendale does. Then it will all fall into Gates's hands.
Mast. McCarthy. Matsui. Jeffries. McBath. Jeffries.
I mean, you can see McCarthy looking visibly nervous right now. They're going to clap for him right now because they're a humiliating group of fascist clowns. But McCarthy looking very, very, very nervous right now. Again, for those joining back, we apologize. We had some slight technical difficulties before that we managed to fix and address in fairly short order. We are back in action with our nonstop coverage here. Haven't really missed much, which is good. There's been no decision yet in the speakership race. It still hangs in balance. Gates did not vote on his turnaround, presumably wanting to be the decisive vote. But I'm seeing a lot of nervous faces right now. A lot of uncertainty.
McHenry. McCarthy.
Ironically, Boebert's present vote will actually make it easier for McCarthy
Menendez.
to win the speakership after Boebert's going out there saying that she would never support McCarthy.
Jeffries. Muser. McCarthy. Mfume. Jeffries. Miller of Illinois. McCarthy. Miller of Ohio.
So as we look at our chart, the next critical one we're focused on is Rosendale. And in Rosendale's previous vote, or 2 rounds ago, it all blends together at this point. He says, I am going to vote Kevin Hearn.
McCarthy. Molinaro.
So if Rosendale votes other, it will all be in Matt Gaetz' hands.
Mooney.
The fate of Kevin McCarthy will hang in the hands of Matt Gaetz, exactly what Gaetz wanted.
Moore of Utah.
And Gaetz said never will he allow McCarthy. Never
Moore of Wisconsin.
will he allow McCarthy to become the speaker.
Jeffries.
Will he sell out?
Moran. McCarthy. Morelli. Jeffries. Moskowitz. Jeffries. Moulton. Jeffries. Mervan. Jeffries. Mullen.
They're all huddling around Gaetz, realizing I think Gaetz holds the key here.
Murphy. McCarthy. Nadler. Jeffries. Napolitano. Jeffries. Neal.
Someone commented, and I found this humorous. Dear Salty, without telling us what Ben did wrong, what exactly did Ben do wrong to break the YouTube feed? All right, I take responsibility for breaking the YouTube feed. It's my fault. Okay, we're looking for Rosendale next as they go down in order by last name, alphabetically. We're looking at Rosendale, and we want to see where Rosendale votes. Rosendale has been a big no for Kevin McCarthy.
None of Iowa. McCarthy. Obernolte. McCarthy. Ocasio-Cortez. Jeffries. Ogles. McCarthy. Omar. Jeffries. Owens. McCarthy. Pallone. Jeffries. Palmer. McCarthy. Panetta. Jeffries. Pappas. Jeffries.
Now, Ralph Norman, who you saw just vote for McCarthy, was a holdout through the first 12 rounds. And ultimately, what Ralph Norman said, that to win his vote, McCarthy would need to be willing to shut down the government and default
Pelosi.
on the debt. That's been one of the major concessions, to default our debt. Just want you to think about that. That's what the MAGA Republicans want to do. So Medicare is at risk, your 401k is at risk, Social Security is at risk.
Jeffries. Perry. McCarthy.
Perry was a
Peters.
defector through most of the rounds who went to
Jeffries.
McCarthy with the concessions
Pedersen.
that were made. And we will tell
Jeffries.
you about those concessions in a little bit, but we're focused
McCarthy.
right now on this round of voting. The
Phillips.
next name, as they go
Jeffries.
alphabetically, we want to
Pingree.
focus on the R's with Rosendale. If we have the
Jeffries.
chart, Salty, let's pull up the
Pocan.
chart.
Jeffries. Porter.
Salty back in action, everybody.
Jeffries.
Rosendale, you want to look at
Posey.
those arrows. Biggs,
McCarthy.
Bobert, Crane, Gates.
Presley.
Good Rosendale.
Jeffries.
Gates has not
Quigley.
voted yet. It will all fall on
Jeffries.
Gates likely, depending on what Rosendale does.
Ramirez.
Hakeem Jeffries.
Jeffries. Raskin.
Hakeem Jeffries.
Jeffries. Reschenthaler. McCarthy. Rogers of Washington. McCarthy. Rogers of Alabama.
McCarthy.
McCarthy. Rogers of Kentucky. McCarthy. Rose.
Kevin McCarthy.
McCarthy. Rosendale.
There you
Biggs.
go. Rosendale with Biggs. You'll see the others will tick up to 4. So it will all come down to
Ross.
Gates. All eyes on
Jeffries.
Gates. McCarthy's
Rouser.
fate lies with
McCarthy.
Gates. The drama
Roy.
that is unfolding right now
McCarthy.
before our eyes on the House
Ruiz.
floor.
Jeffries.
Gates will be the deciding factor.
Rupersberger. Jeffries. Rutherford. McCarthy. Ryan. Jeffries. Salazar.
And while we can predict what Gates is going to do, they're going to go through the list of names
Salinas.
again. Then what they're going to do is
Jeffries.
call anybody else who hasn't voted, what's your
Sanchez.
vote? And then Gates will
Jeffries.
then vote. So we still have a little bit of time.
Santos.
But let's play the clip, Salty, of
McCarthy.
Gates on Fox moments before stepping onto the House floor, basically boasting and bragging that McCarthy had given away everything. And what's left to even give at this point? We've got everything we wanted. Let's play that clip right now.
And encouraged. I am grateful that Speaker-designate McCarthy has been so receptive to each and every change that we have demanded. And Sean, we're at the stage right now where I'm running out of stuff to ask for. I mean, read the bills, have a balanced budget, have a border plan. Yes. Kevin McCarthy is agreeing to all these things. And again, it's never been about him. It's been about draining the swamp, making this a more honest, transparent, open place.
There you have Gates, basically. Once they go into the whole disinfo stuff,
proud of the entire Republic.
I say cut it, but we'll go back to the floor right now and we'll see what Gates
McCarthy.
does.
David Scott.
There you had Gates basically bragging that he gotten everything that he wanted. We'll talk
David
about what
Scott.
those concessions are in a bit, because
Scott of
McCarthy
Virginia.
literally gave away
Jeffries.
everything. He would just be a ceremonial leader
So.
at this point.
McCarthy.
And it would actually just take
Sessions.
one vote,
McCarthy.
one Republican of voting no confidence to remove
Sewell.
McCarthy having no confidence vote. Unheard of. But in McCarthy's
Jeffries.
quest to be speaker,
Sherman.
he's willing to be the most humiliated, weakest
Jeffries.
speaker ever. And that's where
Sherrill.
we're at, folks. 14th roll call vote.
Jeffries.
It will all come down to Gates.
Simpson. McCarthy. Slotkin. Jeffries. Smith of Missouri. McCarthy. Smith of Nebraska. McCarthy. Smith of New Jersey. McCarthy. Smith of Washington. Jeffries. Smucker. McCarthy. Sorensen. Jeffries. Soto. Jeffries. Spanberger. Jeffries. Sparts. McCarthy. Stansbury. Jeffries. Stanton. Jeffries. Stauber. McCarthy. Steele. McCarthy. Stefanik. McCarthy. Style. McCarthy. Stube. McCarthy. Stevens. Jeffries. Stewart. McCarthy. Strickland. Jeffries.
I think this comment is
Strong.
worth reading. I saw this on Twitter right now. Does anyone else find it completely disgusting that Matt
Jeffries.
Gaetz holds the power of the people's house,
Sykes.
and 2 years ago he asked Trump for a pardon
Jeffries.
on January 6th? It's irony in the worst way for the rule of law. Anyone who supported overthrowing our government should not control the speakership.
Takano.
Couldn't agree more with that comment.
Jeffries. Tenney. McCarthy. Tanadar. Jeffries. Thompson of California. Jeffries. Thompson of Mississippi. Jeffries. Thompson of Pennsylvania. McCarthy. Tiffany. McCarthy. Timmons. McCarthy. Titus. Jeffries. Tlaib. Jeffries. Takuda. Jeffries. Tonko.
Yeah, you see Patrick McHenry, who gave
Torrance
the
of California.
nominating speech there for
Jeffries.
McCarthy, working on Gaetz hard right now. I think there's a lot of
Torrance of New
confusion what
York.
Gaetz is going to do right now.
Trahan. Jeffries. Trone. Jeffries. Turner. McCarthy. Underwood. Jeffries. Valadeo. McCarthy. Van Drew.
Yeah, the camera's exactly where it needs to be with
McCarthy.
McHenry talking passionately to
Van
Gaetz right
Dyne.
now. And if anyone could read lips out there,
McCarthy.
it doesn't look like that's a good conversation
Van
going
Orden.
on right there.
Kevin McCarthy.
McCarthy. Vargas.
Hakeem Jeffries.
Jeffries. Vasquez.
Hakeem Jeffries.
Jeffries. VC.
Jeffries.
Jeffries. Velasquez. Jeffries. Wagner. McCarthy. Wahlberg.
Mr. McCarthy.
McCarthy. Waltz. McCarthy. Wasserman Schultz. Jeffries. Waters. Jeffries. Watson Coleman. Jeffries. Weber of Texas.
McCarthy.
McCarthy. Webster of Florida. McCarthy. Winstrup.
McCarthy.
McCarthy. Westerman. McCarthy. Wexton. Jeffries. Wild. Jeffries. Williams of Georgia. Jeffries. Williams of New York. Williams of New York. McCarthy. Williams of Texas.
Kevin McCarthy.
McCarthy. Wilson of Florida. Jeffries. Wilson of South Carolina. McCarthy. Whitman. McCarthy. Womack. McCarthy. Yackham.
McCarthy.
McCarthy. Zinke.
You can see they're working hard on Gaetz right now. Boebert sitting right by Gaetz. We're going to find out shortly, folks.
The reading clerk will now call the names of the members-elect who did not answer the first call of the roll.
Buck. McCarthy. Gates. Present.
Gates votes present. But will that do it?
Gosar. McCarthy. Graves of Louisiana. McCarthy. Carter of California. Jeffries.
The issue is going to come down to now absences. We're focused on who's absent. They're counting and trying to see if they have enough people to show up.
David Scott. Jeffries.
There's apparently an absence they're trying to find out. This is how disorganized they are, folks. They're missing a vote. With Gates voting present, that's not enough for McCarthy. That's what they're yelling at him. They're telling him, change your vote to McCarthy, because they're missing one vote. Gates is, it's like he's yelling at McCarthy right now. The drama that is unfolding now, it looks what happened there is an absence, so they are missing one vote, folks. You got McCarthy yelling at Gates right now to switch his vote from present to McCarthy. That is the drama that's unfolding because they're missing a vote. McCarthy does not have the votes right now. McCarthy is yelling at Gates. I don't think they have the votes, folks. It looks like there's actually a fight that could be breaking out on the floor right now. It could be a physical altercation. It is pandemonium on the floor of the House, folks. They are missing a vote. Oh my God. Because with the present vote, they don't have the votes. It looks like they're going to have to do another roll call vote. They don't have the votes, folks, after all of that. I'm shocked. Utter silence. taken over the House floor. Everybody's in shock, trying to tell Gates to change his vote. Gates saying, I'm not voting for McCarthy. I said I wasn't going to vote for McCarthy. You have me voting president. Boebert's voting president. They're missing one because there's an absence. They're not going to get to 216, even with the present votes. Kevin McCarthy does not have the votes, folks, after all of that. How could that be? What utter humiliation. Lauren Boebert smiling. Folks, this is unbelievable. He doesn't have the votes. With Gates voting present because of an absence, he doesn't have the votes. It doesn't seem. I think they're telling Gates to change the votes right now, telling Boebert to change the votes right now. They're saying we're not changing our votes from present. There's the moment we have the screenshot, almost a physical altercation taking place. McCarthy, if you look at that face, this looks like one of those medieval paintings. This is an image right here that I think will forever live in history. This very photo right here. The chaos, the drama that is unfolding right now on the House floor as McCarthy doesn't have the votes because there's one absent. Let's see what happens. With Gates voting present and Boebert voting present, they don't have the votes. Are we going to go into a 15th roll call vote? There's Andy Biggs speaking to Gates. Is Biggs going to change? Is Biggs going to do it? McCarthy's looking shocked right now. Shocked. Look at the face of that loser right now. That is one of the weakest individuals out there. He's supposed to be the speaker. That is a look of weakness. That is a look of exhaustion. He's saying we'll have to do it one more time. If you could read lips, we'll have to do it one more time. They saying, are we going to adjourn? What are we doing? The clerk, Cheryl Johnson's going to have to call order. I don't think he has it. Shock on the faces of all of those MAGA Republicans. Shock on the face of Elise Stefanik. Look at that face of Kevin McCarthy. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. The nervous laughter, slouching, humiliated. Humiliated. What is that? He wants to see what's going on. Taquito wants to see what's going on. Kevin McCarthy's getting humiliated. Kevin McCarthy's getting humiliated, Taquito. You don't get that on large media networks. You don't get to see their Maltese watch Kevin McCarthy get utterly humiliated. Call the vote. It's over. Call the vote. He doesn't have the votes. Here, let's pull up the clip of the altercation that just occurred a second ago. There was almost a fight that broke out. Play the clip. They started pointing at each other. After realizing he doesn't have the guts. Let's go back to the House floor, Salty. It looks like McHenry just said, get him out of the chamber. Get him out of the chamber. This is humiliating. No one expected this to happen, folks. Kevin McCarthy lying to the media, but said he had the votes. That was the whole point of the adjournment. And now the Republicans, after all of this, after the 14th roll call vote, being humiliated in this fashion. As the whole world watches, as McCarthy thought he had the votes, but didn't know how to count. They weren't even aware how to count. What they're trying to do, they know that they're yelling at Gates. They don't want the world to watch them talking to Gates. They don't want the world to watch them talking to McCarthy. McCarthy's just sitting there utterly humiliated. I think they're going to bring Gates out. Let's go put the sound on. They're trying to get him out. What they're trying to say to Gates is, let's talk in the hallways. And Gates saying, I'm not talking in the hallways. I'm not moving. And Boebert saying, we're not leaving here. They're saying, this is embarrassing. The whole world's watching. He goes, okay, well, I'm not moving. I'm not voting for him. Call the vote. Call the vote, Madam Clerk. It's a wrap. Okay, folks, well, I'm sorry for the technical difficulties before. All right, it's all worth it now. We came back at the exact right time. It was about a 5-minute technical difficulty alert. But that was a long time ago. We didn't miss anything. We're now watching it all unfold. Stop the count. Stop the count. Stop the count. What an utter humiliation.
Can we get the tallies?
Yeah, get the tallies, Madam Clerk. Get the tallies, Madam Clerk. Are we heading into the 15th roll call vote at 11:12 p.m. East Coast time? This is unbelievable, folks. Kevin McCarthy thought he had it wrapped up, but they are so incompetent they don't know how to count. For those just wanting to do the math, how you know the magic number is 217, just take 216 plus 212 plus 4, divide it by 2, add 1, that would be the majority of outstanding votes. That's 217, the magic number. McCarthy got 216. He did not hit the 217 threshold, and the clerk's going to announce the vote is done. McCarthy looks like it's going to be announced that he failed the 14th roll call vote. And for those wondering, that's the math. If you got the pencil in hand or the
Tellers
calculator in hand,
agree
that's either.
in their tallies that the total number of votes cast is
Wow.
432, of which the Honorable Kevin McCarthy of the state of California has received 216.
And they stand up and clap. What clowns. And he stands up like that and claps. Wow. This is a day we will all remember for a very long
The
time.
Honorable Hakeem Jeffries of the state of New York has received 212.
Let's go, Hakeem.
The Honorable Jim Jordan of the state of Ohio has received 2. The Honorable Andy Biggs of the state of Arizona has received 2. No member-elect having received a majority of the votes
Wow.
cast, a speaker has not been elected.
Gentlemen from both sides. Would the gentleman repeat?
Will the gentleman repeat his motion?
I move the House do now adjourn until noon Monday.
Wow.
Questions on
The question is
Wow.
on
They're
the
asking
motion
for an
to
adjournment,
adjourn.
folks.
All those in favor, say,
It looks like they don't have the votes for an adjournment.
the ayes have it. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it.
Ask for the yeas and nays. Madam Clerk, ask for the yeas and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested. Those favoring a vote by yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered.
So they are now going to count the yeas and nays for an adjournment. This is unbelievable, folks, what we are now watching. Nobody predicted this to take place. As everyone went into it, everybody thought that the votes were there for Kevin McCarthy, but they're not. And so for those asking what number, what was the magic number? What am I even looking at right now? You're looking at the magic number of 217, right? And so you saw McCarthy get 216. You saw Hakeem Jeffries get 212, right? And then you saw that the others got 4. So do 216 plus 212 plus 4, divide it by 2, add 1, you get 217, which is the magic number. McCarthy got 216 votes right there. So now what we're looking at is a vote to adjourn until Monday. That is where we're at in this process. Nobody expected this was going to be the results. In fact, the Republicans were so confident they had put the agenda of what was going to take place. Even Democrats thought this was the agenda that was going to be followed. Tom Emmer, the majority whip elect, put out an agenda saying the House will reconvene at 10 p.m. and proceed to the 14th ballot for the election of the Speaker of the House. Members are strongly encouraged to remain on the floor. throughout business this evening. Following the election of the speaker will swear in all members and delegates on the House floor. They had it planned what was going to take place tonight. And then it said, after the swearing in, the House will debate House resolution adopting the rules for the 118th Congress. This is where Kevin McCarthy gave all of the concessions. Salty, let's pull up what Tom Emmer put out, Republican, put out. This was the agenda, the majority whip elect, Tom Emmer from Minnesota's 6th congressional district. This was the plan. They were then going to go and move to the rules. And what was being reported to all of the press was basically that Kevin McCarthy conceded on every single rule. Let's pull back up to the House floor right now for a moment. And you see right now the yays to adjourn at 162, the nays at 184 right now to not adjourn, to vote and continue to humiliate Kevin McCarthy. That's what we see, the nays with 56 no votes still in the yays. Let's also just pull up this thread by Melanie Zanona. These were some of the concessions that had been announced before going to the House floor. These were the concessions that Kevin McCarthy made, essentially giving away everything. Anyone can call a vote to oust the speaker. McCarthy's leadership pack won't play in safe, open primaries, meaning he won't challenge any of the MAGA extremists. The debt ceiling hike must be paired with spending cuts. In other words, allowing the United States to default on our debt, placing Medicare, Social Security at risk, defunding our troops. Let's keep going through the list of some of these other concessions that Zanona talked about. More Freedom Caucus members. I hate calling them that. Let's just call them Traitor Caucus. More Traitor Caucus members on committees, including House rules. Cap discretionary spending at fiscal 2022 levels, which would amount to lower levels for defense and domestic programs. What they want to do is defund the military in order to help Vladimir Putin against Ukraine. They don't want money going to Ukraine. That was an important concession. Create an investigative committee to probe the weaponization of the federal government. They want a select committee that will attack the Department of Justice as well as the FBI. They want to hold votes on, I don't call them conservatives, the fascist bills. Give members the ability to offer more amendment on the House floor. Any of the other concessions that we have from, or is that it? I think that's it. Let's go back to the House floor right now. So far, the nays not to adjourn are beating the yeas. I also want to show you, as we head from January 6th to January 7th, this is a photo of the House members who gathered to mark the 2nd anniversary of the January 6th insurrection, and only one Republican member was present, Representative Brian Fitzpatrick. This is from Kristen Wilson's tweet. These were all of the members of the House of Representatives who were there to mark the anniversary of the insurrection. Only one Republican showed up. What we're dealing with is a radical, fascist, incompetent party. And for those watching internationally, how horrifying is this? How disgusting and despicable. Let's go back to the House floor and see those yays and nays. But I wanted to show you that image. I thought that was very powerful. You see, you have one nay on the adjourn side, still 34 no votes there. No matter what, we will have to head into a 15th roll call vote after Kevin McCarthy just lost the 14th roll call vote because they couldn't count. He needed 217. He only had 216, folks, and he was shocked. He was shocked. And these are the people who want to toy around and joke around and do this performative stuff when it comes to United States of America defaulting on our debt. These people are insurrectionists, they're arsonists, they are fascists. You know, there really should be some procedure that after you lose 10 of these roll call votes, Americans get to just elect a new Congress. This is absurd. This is completely absurd. And Kevin McCarthy just takes the humiliation. What other concessions is he going to give before Kevin McCarthy comes into the House of Representatives every day? He gets waterboarded. Matt Gaetz gets to punch him in the face every day. What more concessions can you give? But this has made a mockery of the House of Representatives, folks. An utter mockery. Let's go back to the House floor. We're now at the motion to adjourn until Monday. Just so everyone knows what that means there would be no other votes tonight. And look at Kevin McCarthy just like waving. I mean, waving to his kids, like waving to the other congressmen's kids. Like, just I want you to put that in perspective, right? Imagine this. All my other examples will pale in comparison to this, but just imagine you're at like a basketball game and you're like LeBron James, since the Republicans like to use LeBron James. You're LeBron James' teammate. Your team is down 40 points. You've missed every shot you take. You go, oh, LeBron James, like, take a photo with my kid. Take a photo with my kid. You know, Kevin McCarthy's waving to the kid. Kevin McCarthy, this is the most humiliating day in your life. This is the most embarrassing day in the history of the Republican Party because of you, and you're up there waving. You cowardly, weak traitor. And look at his face. Just look at the weakness. If weakness had a look, it looks like Kevin McCarthy. Right now, their fight is to adjourn, and there are 2 nays. They should, by all accounts, have the votes to adjourn, but their fight now, folks, is not to vote Kevin McCarthy as Speaker. Their fight is to try to adjourn until Monday, to come back on Monday and to leave for the weekend. Wow, this was not expected. What everybody thought was going to happen was McCarthy was going to get it on the 14th roll call finally. They were then going to move to the rules package. But here, pull up this post from Filikowski about Tony Gonzalez, a Republican from Texas. He happens to represent the Uvalde district as well. So the next thing they have to move to is voting on the rules package. And this Republican from Texas, Tony Gonzalez, goes, I'm a no on the House rules package. Welcome to the 118th Congress. And as Filikowski goes, yes to McCarthy, no to the deal he cut. The betrayal will begin fast. This is going to get ugly. So once you pick the Speaker, just for those watching, let's go back to the House floor. Once you pick the Speaker, you then got to pass the rules package. So are they going to go back to this for the rules package next? Is that what happens next? This same fight over the rules package? Because now what happens when you give every concession to the MAGA extremists? What happens when you give every concession there? Then I don't think there are any more moderate Republicans, but when you say, hey, our concession is we're going to defund the military, then what are all those other Republicans going to tell their constituents back at home? One of the major concessions was to reduce the funding in the military so that we can't supply arms to Ukraine. There are now 3 nay votes. Are they going to not adjourn? Wow. Wow, wow, wow. But yes, now Kevin McCarthy has to explain, or people now have to explain, Republicans have to explain that Kevin McCarthy's now agreed to a deal where they're not going to fund the military. This is from Representative Abigail Spanberger, Democrat. She goes, as the Chinese Communist Party is increasing its military spending, Ukraine is under siege, and Iran and North Korea are watching. Cutting our nation's defense spending is short-sighted and dangerous, and doing it for the Speaker votes is unconscionable. That's one of the things, to cut $75 billion in the defense budget, specifically target at not funding Ukraine. That was one of the concessions that McCarthy had to give, a pro-Putin concession. One of the concessions the extremists forced McCarthy to agree to is to support Vladimir Putin and to support Russia in its unlawful invasion of Ukraine. The other concession is to allow the United States to default on our debt, putting your Medicare at risk, putting your Social Security at risk, putting your 401k at risk, putting the economy in complete jeopardy. These idiots are going to deal with our economy. These freaking idiots are going to deal with our economy. And yeah, I'll call them idiots. I'll call them fascists. I'll call them traitors. These people are morons. Look at them. Look at these traitors. Look at them. Look at each and every one of these fascist traitor idiots. I am so pissed off right now that this MAGA Republican Party can exist here. There's 4 nay votes. Are they going to go and are they going to lose again? Are we going to be up for the 15th roll call vote? This is humiliating for the United States of America. And it's squarely because it's not a both sides issue. It's not a hyper-partisan, like the large media networks like to say. It's these idiots, these MAGA Republican idiots, these fascists, these people on January 6th, 2 years ago, supported insurrection. And if these idiots controlled the House of Representatives, if they controlled the House, they would have overthrown our democracy. Fortunately, we had Democrats in control. Could you imagine if you had this crew of fascist idiots in control? It is utterly despicable that this could exist. It is shameful. And you have Kevin McCarthy, you have Gates, you have all of them with their Putin propaganda. Utterly despicable. And rather than McCarthy do the normal thing here, would say, okay, let me govern and let me govern with authority. And one way that I can do that is if I cut a deal with the Democrats. Let's form a moderate coalition and actually govern like they do in other places in the world. Like they do in parliamentary systems. Let's cut a normal deal to actually make a working government. No, Kevin McCarthy's deal is let's cut Medicare. Let's cut Social Security. Let's cut your 401k. Let's support Vladimir Putin. Let's look like idiots in front of the whole entire freaking world on a Friday night on January 6th. That's what we should do. And now you're fighting to adjourn with 6 no votes. It's unclear if they're even going to be able to adjourn until Monday. They're still 3 votes behind on the adjournment. Here are the defectors voting on the adjournment. Let's see what they want to do. Now it's even 216, 216. Let's go into the floor right now and let's turn the volume up. And with that, some of the votes look like they changed from nay to yay. So it looks like they will have the time for an adjournment. How utterly humiliating. There's McCarthy and Gates. Unless they're working out a deal right now to not adjourn. Are they switching not to adjourn? Do they now have the votes to make him speaker? Is that the activity that's taken? Are they moving to nay because they think they have it on the 15th roll call vote? It looks like there may have been some deal that was just struck. You see it going now to the nays, which tells me that they may think they have the actual votes to get this done in the 15th roll call vote. That seems to be the development right there taking place. But now will Democrats change their vote to yay? Yeah, it looks like what's happening is that there could be a deal being struck right here for McCarthy to win on the 15th roll call vote of speakership. They proposed the adjournment. I think he's saying that he's got the votes for speakership. It's the only explanation, if there is one, why the votes are now going from yay to nay, even though they proposed the adjournment. Salty, is that a real photo right there? That is a real photo of Marjorie Taylor Greene putting Donald Trump on speakerphone during these proceedings. I have to ask if that's real because sometimes it's utterly shocking. So to me, they're going to go for a 15th roll call vote, which tells me that there was some deal that was just struck on the floor. You saw some noise erupt with Gates and with McCarthy. Okay, so it looks like while the Republicans requested an adjournment, they now voted against the adjournment that they requested. There was some activity on the floor between McCarthy and Gates, which leads me to believe that some deal was struck on the floor. Don't know how McCarthy could sell more shares of himself, but that looks like the deal that was struck. There you see Biggs. Let's pull up the screen right now and see what's going on the House floor. Now we got Marjorie Taylor Greene speaking to Gates. Based on the fist bumping, the handshaking, it seems that they've got a deal now. And it looks like on the 15th roll call vote, just from the body language that we see with people embracing Gates, Gates fist bumping people, McCarthy looking like he's got it. I think they will be a 15th roll call vote, and it does seem McCarthy will be able to secure the speakership on the next vote. I'm just speculating here based on the body language, based on the fist bumping, but I think it's fairly obvious based on that what's going on. Although I don't think they'll do it. It would be interesting if all of the Democrats switch to yes, all en masse, and then see if the Republicans switch to nay. I don't think the Democrats will do it because the Democrats, as intriguing as that would be, it feels like would create a bunch of chaos, and they've been pretty firm about wanting to elect a speaker and to get the process going and to expose what's going on. But based on all of the body language, who Gates is talking to, it seems all but certain that a deal was cut. Gates got something that he wanted, and looks like on the 15th roll call vote, McCarthy will have it. That was the moment when Kevin McCarthy realized that he had lost the 14th roll call. But I guess 15 may be the charm for Kevin after the Republicans called for the adjournment. But can I just make one observation? And the observation is when they actually operated not from a sense of weakness, when they called the adjournment and just said, all right, fine, we're not doing this all night, we're going to leave. That's when you actually got someone like Gates to come around. They've always been negotiating from a position of weakness, and everybody knows McCarthy wanted it so badly that he would do anything. He would sell his soul. He would sell all of the shares of himself. And when that's known, you get people like the Marjorie Taylor Greens, and then on the other side, the Boeberts and the Gateses and the Biggs, and people who realize you are for sale and that you can get anything you want from somebody. They will sell all aspects of themselves to you because they have no dignity, because you're operating from a position of weakness. If from the outset, McCarthy would have said, fine, I'm negotiating with the Democrats, then you've been negotiating at least from a position of power, even with your own base. Instead, McCarthy always negotiated from a position of weakness, let Gates get whatever he wants, and it'll be interesting to see what that is. Let's go back to the House floor now, and we will see what it is. But I think they're going to call for a 15th roll call vote, and I think this will be the one where it gets it. And they're celebrating like this is like a great thing when it's been utterly humiliating. I mean, they're chanting one more time. How clownish can you be? Republicans chanting one more time. Based on the body language, Gates got everything he wanted. So you have Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz, one under investigation for child sex trafficking, both insurrectionists, one who taunts survivors of school shootings and talks about Jewish space lasers and makes a number of anti-Semitic remarks and spread conspiracy theories and brags about QAnon. You got Matt Gaetz, who asked for a pardon about all the conduct he's ever engaged in his life. Those are now the de facto leaders of the Republican Party. I hope America's watching. I hope the world is watching. And I hope all of those who are watching right now and following along on this stream, first off, make sure you subscribe right now. But to make sure that the tools and information that we provide you with here, how we talk about pro-democracy, how we talk about traitors and fascists, how we don't call these MAGA extremists conservative, because there's absolutely nothing conservative about them. They are destructionists, they are fascists, they are traitors, and we need to be loud and call them out.
Have all
Let's go
members
back to the
voted?
House floor.
Does any member wish to change a vote?
Susan's got to get in there.
Off aye on no for Mr. Gates, Maliotakis, Boebert, Roy, Style, McCarthy, Burchett, Latta, Stauber, Lawler, McLean, Crane, Biggs, Good, Huizinga, Rosendale, Griffith, Kane of New Jersey, Turner, Emmer, Lunar, Duncan, Van Drew, Klein, Nunn of Iowa, Jimenez, Van Dyne, Carl, Davidson, Strong, Tenney, Bilirakis, Van Orden, Winstrup, Burgess, Wagner, Wahlberg, Johnson of South Dakota, Smirker, Mast, Scalise, Molinaro, Kamek, Guthrie, Fleischman, Rogers of Kentucky, Murphy, Rushenthaler, Langworthy, Joyce of Ohio, Kiley, Fallon, LaMalfa, Graves of Missouri, Bentz, C. Scott Franklin, Miller Meeks, Bice, Miller of Ohio, Rogers of Washington, Obernolte, D'Esposito, and Fitzpatrick. Off no on I for Ms. Maliotakis.
She had two cards.
Maliotakis was off I on no.
On this vote, the yeas are 155, the nays are 279. The motion is not adopted. For what purpose does the gentleman from Arkansas rise?
Madam Clerk, I rise to nominate Kevin McCarthy as the Speaker of the House.
There you have these MAGA clowns clapping on the 15th roll call vote. Kevin McCarthy, who will have no power as Speaker, who has given away everything. This is beyond humiliating.
Madam Clerk, the eyes of the world, the eyes of America are on this body right now.
Yeah, and you are utter
What
clown.
America needs,
Is
what
not
this
you.
body needs, is a lot less talk and a lot more action. And at the direction of the Republican Conference, I advance the name of Kevin McCarthy as the next Speaker of the House of the 118th Congress.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Minnesota rise?
Madam Clerk, I rise to say, wow.
And Madam Clerk, I rise to place into nomination for election to the position of Speaker of the House of Representatives, the esteemed and wonderful leader of House Democrats, Mr. Hakeem Jeffries of New York.
The gentleman is recognized.
Friends, our nation's first president, unanimously elected by the Electoral College in 1789, keeps watch over us every single day right here in this chamber. And in his inaugural address to our new nation, he spoke of, and I quote, a form of government for the security of our union and the advancement of our happiness. Security of our union and advancement of our happiness. But 234 years later, and after 14 rounds of balloting and a ridiculous war for personal power across the aisle, we, the people, still find ourselves without a constituted government, our security neglected, and the advancement of anything impossible. And happiness, suffice to say, Americans are unhappy by the nonsense and the dysfunction playing out on this floor. Particularly those who need us the most, who rely on our offices, and I mean every single one of our offices, for services and support. Not to mention the unhappy GOP and Democratic ranking members and chairs of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, our Armed Services Committee, and the Intel Committees, who say that the risk to our safety and security grows with each passing hour. So my friends, this is not just unhappiness. This is dangerous. However, the 212 unified members of the House Democratic Caucus have a very effective solution for this problem. We call him Hakeem Jeffries. And in the spirit of friendliness and hopefulness, we extend a warm invitation to just 6 of you across the aisle to join us. Join us. And let's end this nonsense, constitute this Congress, and elect him Speaker of the House. A man who is ready to work with everyone in this Congress and throughout our country to place people over politics and solve our country's problems. A man of competency, of decency and integrity. A man of courage, of honor and resolve. A man who listens better than anyone I have ever known in my life. A man of innovation and cooperation, and yes, indeed, alliteration. 14,421 Americans have served in the United States Congress since George Washington's inaugural address 234 years ago. One of the very finest of those Americans is Hakeem Jeffries of the great state of New York, and it is the honor of a lifetime to place his name into nomination for Speaker of the House.
We will now approach the 15th roll call vote. In a moment, we will put up the chart to draw your attention to what you should be focused on this 15th roll call vote.
The reading clerk will call the roll.
So let's pull up our handy chart. And while our chart only focuses on the 13th, we don't have yet the 14th. The first person you're going to want to focus on is Biggs. The B, as they read it alphabetically, comes up very quickly. So will Biggs once again not vote for McCarthy? Pay attention to what Biggs does right away. Then Boebert voted present last time. Let's see if she votes present again.
McCarthy, Aguilar, Jeffries, Alford. I'll say Kevin McCarthy for the win, please. McCarthy, Allen, McCarthy, Allred, Jeffries, Amade, McCarthy, Armstrong, McCarthy, Arrington, McCarthy, Auchincloss, Jeffries, Babin, McCarthy, Bacon,
Get ready for Biggs.
Bacon,
If Biggs flips to
McCarthy,
McCarthy, that should do it.
Baird, Baird, McCarthy, Balderson, McCarthy, Ballant, Jeffries, Banks, McCarthy, Barr,
Get ready
McCarthy,
for Biggs.
Barragan, Jeffries, Bean of Florida, McCarthy, Beatty, Jeffries, Bentz, McCarthy, Barra, Jeffries, Bergman, McCarthy, Beyer, Jeffries,
Here we go.
Bice,
For the 15th and God willing final time, Kevin McCarthy.
McCarthy, Biggs, Present.
And that Biggs present vote should lower the threshold, which could do it for McCarthy. And McCarthy's happy about that because it's how clownish this is.
Bilirakis, McCarthy, Bishop of Georgia. Jeffries. Bishop of North Carolina. McCarthy. Blumenauer. Jeffries. Blunt Rochester. Jeffries. Boebert. Present. Bonamici. Jeffries. Bost.
Kevin McCarthy.
McCarthy. Bowman.
Hakeem Jeffries.
Now we'll see if
Jeffries.
Boebert votes present.
Boyle of Pennsylvania.
Hakeem Jeffries.
Jeffries. Rakeen.
Two
McCarthy.
present.
Brown.
Hakeem Jeffries.
Jeffries. Brownlee. Jeffries. Buchanan. McCarthy. Buck. McCarthy. Bouchon. McCarthy. Baczynski.
For those watching, with Biggs voting
Burchett.
present, if everything else stays the same,
McCarthy.
McCarthy will win.
Burgess.
If everything else stays the same as it did last, now that Biggs voted present,
Burleson.
McCarthy should have it in the 15th
McCarthy.
roll call vote.
Bush. Jeffries. Calvert. McCarthy. Kamek.
Kevin McCarthy.
McCarthy. Caraveo.
Jeffries.
Jeffries. Carbajal.
Jeffries.
Jeffries. Cardenas.
Hakeem Jeffries.
Jeffries. Carey.
Kevin McCarthy.
McCarthy. Carl.
McCarthy and 15.
McCarthy. Carson.
Hakeem Jeffries.
Jeffries. Carter of Georgia.
Kevin McCarthy.
McCarthy.
There's George
Carter
Santos.
of
They are now
Louisiana.
being embraced by the Republican Party.
Jeffries.
You see how important, by the way,
Carter of
Santos
Texas.
is right now to the Republican Party
McCarthy.
to vote for McCarthy.
Cartwright.
Jeffries.
Jeffries. Kassar.
Jeffries.
Jeffries. Case.
Jeffries.
How weird are
Jeffries.
these people?
Caston.
Jeffries.
Jeffries. Castor of Florida. Jeffries. Castro of Texas.
Jeffries.
Jeffries. Chavez DeReamer. McCarthy. Sherfilis McCormick. Jeffries. Chu. Jeffries. Cicilline. Jeffries. Siscobani.
Kevin McCarthy.
McCarthy. Clark of Massachusetts. Jeffries. Clark of New York. Jeffries. Cleaver. Jeffries. Klein. McCarthy. Cloud. McCarthy. Clyburn. Jeffries. Clyde. McCarthy. Cohen. Jeffries. Cole. McCarthy. Collins. McCarthy. Comer. McCarthy. Connolly. Jeffries. Correa. Jeffries. Costa. Jeffries. Courtney. Jeffries. Craig.
As we pull up
Jeffries.
our list, Salty, if we
Crane.
can pull up the chart so people can see what to look
Present.
for. Crane voting present. That's a big deal for McCarthy. The next will be Gates.
Crawford.
McCarthy.
McCarthy. Crenshaw. Crenshaw. McCarthy. Crockett. Jeffries. Crow. Jeffries. Cuellar. Jeffries. Curtis. McCarthy. Davids of Kansas.
Hakeem Jeffries.
Jeffries. Davidson. McCarthy. Davis of Illinois. Jeffries. Davis of North Carolina. Jeffries. Dean of Pennsylvania. Jeffries. DeGette. Jeffries. Dela Cruz. McCarthy. DeLauro. Jeffries. Del Bene. Jeffries. DeLuzio. Jeffries. Dusaunier. Jeffries. Desjardins. McCarthy. D'Esposito. McCarthy. Diaz-Balart. McCarthy. Dingle. Jeffries. Doggett. Jeffries. Donalds. McCarthy. Duarte. McCarthy. Duncan. McCarthy. Dunn of Florida. McCarthy. Edwards. McCarthy. Elsie. McCarthy. Emmer. McCarthy. Escobar. Jeffries. Eshu. Jeffries. Espaillat. Jeffries. Estes. McCarthy. Evans. Jeffries. Ezell. McCarthy. Fallon.
Texas 15 times over, vote for Kevin McCarthy.
McCarthy. Finstra. McCarthy. Ferguson. McCarthy. Finstad. McCarthy. Fishbach.
Kevin McCarthy.
McCarthy. Fitzgerald. McCarthy. Fitzpatrick.
Kevin McCarthy.
McCarthy. Fleischman.
Kevin McCarthy.
McCarthy. Fletcher. Jeffries. Flood. McCarthy. Foster. Jeffries. Fushi. Jeffries. Fox. McCarthy. Lois Frankel. Jeffries. C. Scott Franklin. McCarthy. Frost. Jeffries. Fry. McCarthy. Fulcher. McCarthy. Gates. Present. Gallagher. McCarthy. Gallego. Jeffries. Garamendi.
As we see the count, Salty, let's pull up this
Barbarino.
tweet that Matt Gaetz made, just so we
McCarthy.
could remind everybody.
Mike
Matt
Garcia.
Gaetz saying there are definitely more than 5 members of Congress who would rather
Robert
be
Garcia.
waterboarded by Liz Cheney and vote Kevin
Jeffries.
McCarthy for Speaker of the House, and I'm
Garcia
one
of
of them. And
Illinois.
Matt Gaetz
Jeffries.
essentially
Garcia of
handing it to
Texas.
Kevin McCarthy.
Jeffries. Jimenez. McCarthy. Golden of Maine. Jeffries. Goldman of New York. Jeffries. Gomez. Jeffries. Tony Gonzalez.
Kevin McCarthy.
McCarthy. Vicente Gonzalez. Vicente Gonzalez. Good of Virginia. Present. Gooden of Texas. McCarthy. Gosar. McCarthy. Gottheimer. Jeffries. Granger. Granger. McCarthy. Graves of Louisiana. McCarthy. Graves of Missouri. McCarthy. Green of Tennessee.
McCarthy.
McCarthy. Green of Texas.
So the next thing they'd have to move on to, assuming Kevin McCarthy can prevail, is they'd have to move on to a rules package,
Jeffries.
which they'll have to vote on. And based on
Green
this,
of
do you think,
Georgia.
how are they going to find people to support the
McCarthy.
rules package? We'll
Griffith.
see.
McCarthy. Grijalva. Jeffries. Grothman. McCarthy. Guest. McCarthy. Guthrie. McCarthy. Hageman. McCarthy. Harder of California. Jeffries. Harris. McCarthy. Harshbarger. McCarthy. Hayes. Jeffries. Hearn. McCarthy. Higgins of Louisiana. McCarthy. Higgins of New York. Jeffries. Hill. McCarthy. Hines. Jeffries. Henson. McCarthy. Horsford. Jeffries. Houchin. McCarthy. Houlihan. Jeffries. Hoyer. Jeffries. Hoyle of Oregon. Jeffries. Hudson. McCarthy. Huffman. Jeffries. Huizinga. McCarthy. Hunt. McCarthy. Issa. McCarthy. Ivy. Jeffries. Jackson of Illinois. Jeffries. Jackson of North Carolina. Jeffries. Jackson of Texas.
Kevin McCarthy.
McCarthy. Jackson Lee.
For the Americans that are desperate in need of leadership, I'm proud to vote for Hakeem Jeffries.
Jeffries. Jacobs. Jeffries. James. McCarthy. Jayapal. Jeffries. 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 Johnson of Georgia. Jeffries. Johnson of Louisiana. McCarthy. Johnson of Ohio. McCarthy. Johnson of South Dakota. Johnson of South Dakota. McCarthy. Jordan. McCarthy. Joyce of Ohio. McCarthy. Joyce of Pennsylvania. McCarthy. Camlogger Dove. Jeffries. Captor. Jeffries. Kane of New Jersey. McCarthy. Keating. Jeffries. Kelly of Illinois. Jeffries. Kelly of Mississippi. McCarthy. Kelly of Pennsylvania. McCarthy. Khanna. Jeffries. Higgins of Virginia. McCarthy. Kildee. Jeffries. Kiley. McCarthy. Kilmer. Jeffries. Kim of California. McCarthy. Kim of New Jersey.
For those watching, based on the current count, it is almost
Krishnamurthy.
foregone conclusion Kevin
Jeffries.
McCarthy will win this 15th
Custer.
round and will become the Speaker of the
Jeffries.
House. Obviously,
Kustoff.
things can change, but
McCarthy.
if the vote continues this way,
McCood.
McCarthy will become the
McCarthy.
Speaker of the House. The next question is, they were supposed to vote on a rules
Laloida.
package. Will they be voting on a rules
McCarthy.
package this evening or not?
LaMalfa. McCarthy. Lamborn. McCarthy. Landsman. Jeffries. Langworthy.
Kevin McCarthy.
McCarthy. Larson of Washington. Jeffries. Larson of Connecticut. Jeffries. Latta.
McCarthy.
McCarthy. LaTurner.
McCarthy.
McCarthy. Lawler.
On behalf of the great state of New York, which helped deliver this Republican majority, I'm proud to cast my vote for the next speaker, the Honorable Kevin McCarthy.
McCarthy. Lee of California. Jeffries. Lee of Florida. McCarthy. Lee of Nevada. Jeffries. Lee of Pennsylvania. Jeffries. Ledger Fernandez. Jeffries. Lesko. McCarthy. Letlow. McCarthy. Levin. Jeffries. Liu. Jeffries. Lofgren. Jeffries. Loudermilk. McCarthy. Lucas. McCarthy. Lukemeyer. McCarthy. Luna. McCarthy. Luttrell. McCarthy. Lynch. Jeffries. Mace. McCarthy. Magaziner. Jeffries. Maliotakis. McCarthy. Mann. McCarthy. Manning. Jeffries. Massey. McCarthy. Mast. McCarthy. Matsui. Jeffries. McBath. Jeffries. McCarthy. McCarthy. McCall. McCarthy. McLean. McCarthy. McClintock. McCarthy. McCullum. Jeffries. McCormick. McCarthy. McGarvey. Jeffries. McGovern. Jeffries. McHenry. McHenry. McCarthy. Meeks. Jeffries. Menendez. Jeffries. Ming.
On behalf of the state of New York, who very soon will deliver Speaker Hakeem Jeffries.
Jeffries. Muser. McCarthy. Mfume. Jeffries. Miller of Illinois. McCarthy. Miller of Ohio. McCarthy. Miller of West Virginia. McCarthy. Miller Meeks. McCarthy.
Can we just look at the difference between the Democrats and Republicans right now? Just so we see what was taking place here. You got literally a fist fight on the Republican side. A fist fight was about to break out. That's Representative Mike Rogers attacking Matt Gaetz. And then you have Katie Porter reading a book. That's the difference. Let's go back to the House floor.
Morelli. Jeffries. Moskowitz. Jeffries. Moulton. Jeffries. Mervan. Jeffries. Mullen. Jeffries. Murphy. Murphy. McCarthy. Nadler. Jeffries. Napolitano. Jeffries. Neal. Jeffries. The Goose. Jeffries. Nels.
Trying to find on what's going on back there.
Newhouse. McCarthy. Nickel. Jeffries. Norcross. Jeffries. Norman. McCarthy. None of Iowa.
Honorable Kevin McCarthy.
McCarthy. Obernolte. McCarthy. Ocasio-Cortez. Jeffries. Ogles. McCarthy. Omar. Jeffries. Owens. McCarthy. Pallone. Jeffries. Palmer. McCarthy. Panetta. Jeffries. Pappas. Jeffries. Pasquale. Jeffries. Payne. Jeffries. Pelosi. Jeffries. Peltola. Jeffries. Pence. McCarthy. Perez. Jeffries. Perry. McCarthy. Peters. Jeffries. Pedersen. Jeffries.
I just don't know
Kluger.
how you go from this chaos
McCarthy.
to a rules
Phillips.
package vote.
Jeffries.
You expect these
Pingree.
people who took
Jeffries.
15 roll call votes
Cocan.
before it
Jeffries.
appears Kevin McCarthy will now
Porter.
become the speaker
Jeffries.
to vote on a rules
Posey.
package. They're going to eat
McCarthy.
each other up over that rules package.
Presley.
I mean, you got Kevin McCarthy essentially giving all the concessions in the world to people like
Jeffries.
Matt Gaetz and Lauren Boebert,
Quigley.
allowing one vote of no
Jeffries.
confidence to remove
Ramirez.
McCarthy at any given point in time.
Jeffries. Raskin.
The rules package calls for defunding
Jeffries.
the military by almost $100
Reschenthaler.
billion, specifically
McCarthy.
to aid Putin
Rogers of
in the unlawful
Washington.
invasion of Ukraine. That was one of the major concessions
McCarthy.
that these MAGA extremists
Rogers
wanted to
of
go after
Alabama.
Ukraine, to attack Ukraine. The other is to allow a default on our debt. So your Medicare is at risk now, your Social Security is at risk now, your 401k is at risk now, all at risk right now because of this rules package. There's a select committee to attack the Department of Justice.
Rosendale.
The same way there's the select committee on January 6th. They're doing the select committee to
Rosendale.
attack the DOJ, to attack the FBI, and to attack the
Ross.
January 6th committee.
Jeffries.
They've talked about going
Rouser.
after Dr. Fauci. That's one of the first
McCarthy.
things they're going to do.
Roy.
All of that is also laid out in the rules
McCarthy.
package that was demanded.
Ruiz.
And one of the major concessions
Jeffries.
demanded is the default on our
Ruppersberger.
debt, because that's what exactly what you're seeing here now. We're going to be here in about
Rutherford.
3 to 6 months when it comes to issues about raising the debt
Rutherford.
ceiling. And these MAGA Republicans you're watching are going to be arsonists to the economy
McCarthy.
because they're bought and paid for by Vladimir Putin.
Ryan.
It's that simple.
Jeffries. Salazar. McCarthy. Salinas. Jeffries. Sanchez. Jeffries. Santos.
Kevin McCarthy.
McCarthy. Sarbanes. Jeffries. Scalise.
Kevin McCarthy.
McCarthy. Scanlon. Jeffries. Schakowsky. Jeffries. Schiff. Jeffries.
For those wondering, where did Rosendale vote?
Snyder.
Rosendale did not
Jeffries.
cast the vote,
Skolkin.
so he'll have a chance to vote at the end of the roll call. But
Schreier.
Rosendale did not vote so far. For
Jeffries.
those wondering,
Swikert.
McCarthy.
McCarthy. Austin Scott.
McCarthy.
McCarthy. David Scott. Jeffries. Scott of Virginia. Jeffries. Self. McCarthy. Sessions. McCarthy. Sewell. Jeffries. Sherman. Jeffries. Sherrill. Jeffries. Simpson. McCarthy. Slotkin. Jeffries. Smith of Missouri.
Kevin McCarthy.
McCarthy. Smith of Nebraska. McCarthy. Smith of New Jersey. McCarthy. Smith of Washington. Jeffries. Smucker. McCarthy. Sorensen. Jeffries. Soto. Jeffries. Spanberger. Jeffries. Sparts. Present. Sparts. McCarthy. Stansbury, Jeffries, Stanton,
You know, one of the things with Rosendale not voting, pull up the picture, Salty, of Marjorie Taylor Greene shoving the phone with Donald Trump to Rosendale.
Stefanet,
We got this photo. It was very strange. Marjorie Taylor Greene held her phone. She called Donald Trump,
Stubbe,
asked Donald Trump to basically yell at Rosendale. Rosendale said, "Why would you do that? That's Marjorie Taylor Greene putting Donald Trump on the phone for Rosendale." Rosendale said, "Get out of my face." And now Rosendale has not voted in this round.
Jeffries, Strong, McCarthy, Swalwell, Jeffries, Sykes, Jeffries, Takano, Jeffries, Tenney, McCarthy, Tanadar, Jeffries, Thompson of California, Jeffries, Thompson of Mississippi, Jeffries, Thompson of Pennsylvania, McCarthy, Tiffany, McCarthy, Timmons, McCarthy, Titus, Jeffries, Tlaib, Jeffries, Takuda, Jeffries, Tonko, Jeffries, Torres of California, Jeffries, Torres of New York, Torres of New York, Jeffries, Trahan, Jeffries, Trone, Jeffries, Turner, McCarthy, Underwood, Jeffries, Valadeo, McCarthy, Van Drew,
On behalf of the Southern New Jersey Second Congressional District, Kevin McCarthy.
McCarthy, Van Dyne, McCarthy, Van Orden,
Kevin McCarthy.
McCarthy, Vargas, Jeffries, Vasquez,
Hakeem Jeffries.
Jeffries, VC,
Jeffries.
Jeffries, Velasquez, Jeffries, Wagner, McCarthy, Wahlberg,
Mr. McCarthy.
McCarthy, Waltz,
McCarthy.
McCarthy, Wasserman Schultz, Jeffries, Waters, Jeffries, Watson Coleman, Jeffries, Weber of Texas,
Kevin McCarthy.
McCarthy, Webster of Florida, McCarthy, Winstrup,
McCarthy.
McCarthy, Westerman,
Kevin McCarthy.
McCarthy, Wexton, Jeffries, Wild, Jeffries, Williams of Georgia, Jeffries, Williams of New York,
Mr. McCarthy.
McCarthy, Williams of Texas,
Kevin McCarthy.
McCarthy, Wilson of Florida, Jeffries, Wilson of South Carolina, McCarthy, Whitman, McCarthy, Womack, McCarthy, Yacom, McCarthy, Zinke,
The next Speaker of the United States House of Representatives, Kevin McCarthy.
And that's it, folks. That should officially lock it up there that Kevin McCarthy will become the Speaker of the House on the 15th roll call vote. That's why everybody's celebrating. It is official. Kevin McCarthy will become the Speaker of the House after 15 roll call votes, after selling himself out even more. Now it will simply take one vote by any of these Republicans to oust him. That was one of the concessions that he made, but he's celebrating it. This is what he wanted. He'll probably be removed very shortly based on the concessions that he gave. He is now the weakest speaker in American history, has humiliated the United States of America both here and abroad, but that's what insurrectionists do. That's what insurrectionists want. But you see how happy he is to enter a concession that will make him the weakest speaker ever. But it took 15 roll call votes, folks, and that's it. Now, the next question is going to be, will they vote on a rules package today, or will they adjourn? We've seen all the disagreements over picking Kevin McCarthy. The next move will be the rules package. And do we expect this group to vote on the rules package? You have Marjorie Taylor Greene, a big Kevin McCarthy supporter. What a bunch of clowns. And so the rhetorical question as you watch this is, have you no shame? Have you no shame? And the answer is, Kevin McCarthy has no shame. Willing to overthrow the United States government, willing to support a wannabe dictator on January 6, 2021. Let's go to the House floor.
The reading clerk will now call the names of the members-elect who did not answer the first call of the roll.
She will call Rosendale.
Vicente Gonzalez. Jeffries. Rosendale.
Present.
Present.
Now that group of 6 who voted present, at any time they can oust Kevin McCarthy. Based on the concessions Kevin McCarthy gave, it will just take one vote to oust Kevin McCarthy. Take the over and under and when that vote will take place. Will it be Monday? Will it be Tuesday? Will it be Wednesday? Here's the clerk. Let's go back to Cheryl Johnson. I think they will finally announce that Kevin McCarthy will become the Speaker of the House. Let's watch. The weakest speaker in American history. It looks like the rules vote, which was supposed to take place today, will now go on Monday. Kevin McCarthy appears to be excited. He's now under the rules package, which was supposed to be voted on today. There's not a functioning Congress, to be clear. While We now have a Speaker of the House without a rules package being passed. You know, and he could laugh like that and think it's funny, but you haven't even passed a rules package. And in the rules package you gave, you conceded that it will just take the vote of one Republican to oust you. Let's see if a fight erupts during the rules package to do that. Because the same ordeal we went through here, we will now be focused on with the rule package. Let's go to the floor. You know, it's so bizarre, the jovial mood after going through this ordeal, because they are destructionists. For them, this is funny to them. There's Marjorie Taylor Greene taking the photo that she'll probably post on social media as the de facto leader of the House of Representatives with Matt Gaetz. That's an image right there that will live in infamy. You've sold your soul, Kevin McCarthy. You are the weakest Speaker of the House in American history. Your name will forever be associated with shame, insurrection, and weakness, as we all watch you there. Scared, feeble, weak, traitor, despicable. Nothing normal about these people, folks.
Tellers agree in their tallies that the total number of votes cast is 428, of which the Honorable Kevin McCarthy of the state of California has received 216.
Embarrassing. Shame. Traitor. It's actually just so weird.
The Honorable Hakeem Jeffries of the state of New York has received 212. With 6 recorded as present. Therefore, the Honorable Kevin McCarthy of the state of California, having received a majority of the votes cast, is duly elected Speaker of the House of Representatives.
One of the most shameful moments in American history. A traitor being elected Speaker of the House after 15 roll call votes, after selling shares of himself to insurrectionists on the anniversary of January 6th. For those watching on the West Coast, still January 6th. For those on the East Coast, now January 7th. 2 years later, insurrectionists, take the name USA out of your mouth, you traitors. Take the USA out of your mouth, traitors. Let's go back to the House floor.
The clerk appoints the following committee to escort the Speaker-elect to the chair. The gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Scalise. The gentleman from New York, Mr. Jeffries. The gentleman from Minnesota, Mr. Emmer. The gentlewoman from Massachusetts, Ms. Clark.
I did it, everybody.
From New York,
I did it, everybody.
the gentleman from
After
California.
15 roll call
Mr.
votes and looking like a
Aguilar.
total idiot, I did it,
The gentleman
everybody.
from Louisiana, Mr. Johnson.
These people are just the
The gentleman
worst.
from California, Mr. Liu. The gentlewoman from Michigan, Mrs. McLean. The gentlewoman from Washington, Ms. Delbini. The gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Hudson. The gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Clyburn. The gentleman from Alabama, Mr. Palmer. The gentleman from Colorado, Mr. Neguse. The gentlewoman from Oklahoma, Mrs. Bice. The gentlewoman from Texas, Ms. Escobar. The gentlewoman from Indiana, Mrs. Houshing. The gentlewoman from Illinois, Ms. Underwood. The gentleman from Oklahoma, Mr. Cole. The gentleman from Minnesota, Mr. Phillips. The gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. McHenry. The gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Kildee. The gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Perry. The gentlewoman from California, Ms. Barbara Lee. The gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Graves. The gentlewoman from Florida, Ms. Wasserman Schultz. The gentleman from Arkansas, Mr. Hill. The gentleman from Rhode Island, Mr. Cicilline. The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Roy. The gentlewoman from Virginia, Ms. Spanberger. The gentleman from Florida, Mr. Donalds. The gentlewoman from California, Ms. Jacobs. The gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Bishop. The gentlewoman from Texas, Ms. Crockett. And the members of the California delegation, Ms. Pelosi, Ms. Waters, Mr. Calvert, Ms. Eshoo, Ms. Lofgren, Mr. Sherman, Mrs. Napoleano, Mr. Thompson, Mr. Schiff, Ms. Sanchez, Mr. Issa, Mr. Costa, Ms. Matsui, Mr. McClintock, Ms. Chu, Mr. Garamendi, Mr. Barra, Ms. Bromley, Mr. Cardenas, Mr. Hoffman, Mr. Lamalfa, Mr. Peters, Mr. Ruiz, Mr. Swalwell,
We had a
Mr. Takano, Mr.
funny remark
Vargas,
right now from the
Mr.
accounts.
Desagna,
Don Gillette goes, turns out
Torres,
Republicans
Mrs.
can win an
Torres,
election if they rerun it 15
Mr.
times.
Valadeo, Ms. Barragan, Mr. Carvajal, Mr. Correa, Mr. Khanna, Mr. Panetta, Mr. Gomez, Mr. Harder, Mr. Levin, Ms. Porter, Mr. Mike Garcia, Mrs. Kim, Mr. Obanoti, Mrs. Steele, Mr. Dewar, Mr. Robert Garcia, Mr. Kamlega Dove, Mr. Keeley, Mr. Mullen. The committee will retire from the chamber to escort the speaker-elect to the chair.
So the rules package was supposed to be voted on, well, on Tuesday. And the rules package we were told was going to be voted on tonight. But given that the 14th roll call vote failed for Kevin McCarthy and we had to go into the 15th roll call vote, we're now learning that the rules package that will take place on Monday. It will now be postponed. Following the 15th ballot, Speaker McCarthy will swear in all members elect and delegates. So we will see a swearing in. Members are advised that the consideration of the rules package will be postponed until Monday. No further votes are expected in the House this week. So after the swearing in, which we expect to take place shortly, there'll be some remarks from Speaker-elect McCarthy. He'll spread a bunch of disinformation, say things that will be horrible for our country, look like a pathetic, weak traitor. That's what we expect to happen next. He'll swear in. There will be a swearing in of all of the members and members-elect. And then it will adjourn till Monday, where the rules package will then be debated. Now the question is, will they be able to pass a rules package? Well, we know that there are massive concessions that Kevin McCarthy had to make when it comes to the rules package, including that a single Republican member could oust Kevin McCarthy. And then you may ask, well, then what happens if McCarthy gets ousted? Well, this process that we just watched happens again. The speaker would be removed, and there would be the exact same roll call votes over and over again, and the business of the House of Representatives will stop. At any point in time, one member of the Republican Party could do that. If Gates wants to do that, if there's an issue about funding Ukraine, if there's an issue about funding Social Security, an issue about funding Medicare, issue about funding our troops, an issue about funding, supporting our veterans, all the things that Matt Gaetz and these MAGA Republicans oppose. And it seems that Kevin McCarthy wants to engage in some compromise with Democrats. We just take Gaetz to say, hey, you're out. We're taking you out. And then you would have this exact same process. Government would shut down and our economy will go into a free fall. There's so many positive things that have been taking place with our economy that have been announced. An epic jobs report, 223,000 jobs in December, beating expectations, 3.5% unemployment, the lowest rate in 50 years, 4.5 million jobs in 2022, one of the best years ever, only behind 2021. The Wall Street Journal, of all places, said inflation in the second half of the year has run vastly lower than in the first half. In fact, and this is astonishing, it's almost down to the Federal Reserve's 2% target. Even more astonishing, hardly anyone seems to have noticed. And so you have all of these positive developments that you're looking at with the economy. Things are actually going well. Could they go better? Yes. But Democrats actually working for the people with a functioning government. You had President Biden in Kentucky actually building bridges. He was there with Mitch McConnell on a bipartisan basis while this chaos ensued on the House floor. With all of this great news going on in our economy, just think you're going to have Matt Gaetz and Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene. They're going to hold the economy hostage. They're going to intentionally tank the economy. Utterly, utterly disastrous. Let's go back to the floor of the House and see the clerk, Cheryl Jones, who's done an excellent, excellent job. We will see remarks from Kevin McCarthy, the 55th Speaker of the House, the weakest speaker in American history, shortly. As predicted, Marjorie Taylor Greene took that photo right away, posted it. That's the de facto Speaker of the House right there. So after 4 days, after 15 roll call votes, after humiliating the nation, after humiliating the House of Representatives, Kevin McCarthy has given massive concessions to become the Speaker of the House. He'll be the 55th Speaker of the House. He'll be the weakest Speaker in history. For example, you're looking at Congresswoman Luna right there. She's one of the people who will likely immediately want to oust Kevin McCarthy the moment he tries to do anything that would tank our economy. Same thing with Matt Gaetz and Biggs and all of them. It'll take just one to oust him. There's George Santos. I mean, it's just beyond weird. Like, I mean, they're traitors, they're fascists. I mean, it's just like the weirdest crew of people in the world. They lied about everything in his life. Just sitting there. By the way, one of the key votes for Kevin McCarthy, just sitting there. But, Santos has found his crew. It's like, it's like he's found the perfect party for him, the perfect crew of weirdo fascists for him. There he is, George Santos. So strange. Let's pull up that side-by-side of Katie Porter, though, and the fist fight that ensued as well. I think this is an image that will kind of always live in the history as we talk about this incident. There's Katie Porter reading a book on the one hand, and then you have like an actual fist fight taking place on the other hand, where almost came to blows with each other. It's Representative Mike Rogers right there getting his face pulled back as he tries to take a swing at Matt Gaetz. And we're all Katie Porter, aren't we? I mean, we're all on team normal. This is the normalcy, humanity, focusing on jobs, focusing on healthcare, focusing on education, focusing on actually supporting our troops, focusing on supporting Ukraine. When there are global pandemics, we take it seriously. We don't say arrest the main scientist. You don't arrest Dr. Fauci. That's one of the main concessions as well, is to go after Dr. Fauci and investigate Dr. Fauci immediately, that Kevin McCarthy has agreed to. An utter and complete clown show that exists in the MAGA Republican Party. And so I'll say this, because I don't see a utility in showing Kevin McCarthy's speech at this point. I don't think to see the disinformation spread, to me, doesn't really make sense. Doesn't do a service. The rules package is not going to be voted on today. That will be on Monday. So there still won't be a functioning Congress until the rules package is passed. We'll see if we should do what they do. Maybe MeidasTouch will do this, what they did in the UK, where they had the salad, and see if the salad lasts longer than Kevin McCarthy, because it seems like pretty much right away you're going to see disunity, complete dysfunction, and this process that we just saw happening all over again as they oust Kevin McCarthy and don't have an alternative. But I suspect that will happen very, very, very soon. Showed you the disorder, showed you the chaos of the MAGA Republican Party. And I'll tell you what, President Biden's not going to take this crap from them, because President Biden actually knows how to negotiate. And President Biden just going to say, if you're going to do this, we're going to expose you every step of the way. Fortunately, in the Senate, you have a functioning Senate. But I don't see the utility of showing you the Kevin McCarthy gaslighting speech. It'll probably just be sickening anyway, be more disinformation. So why give him a platform to spread his lies? Everybody, make sure you check out the MeidasTouch podcast. Search for the MeidasTouch podcast. Make sure you subscribe. If you want to support independent media like this, check us out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch. We're not funded by any outside investors at all. So none of the billionaire or millionaire investors who fund the both sides media, the large media networks, who try to normalize the behavior of the fascist traitors in the Republican Party. We don't do that here on the MeidasTouch Network. We call traitors traitors. We call fascists fascists. No offense to clowns. I've repeated that a lot, but these are fascist clowns. We call them out each and every step of the way, and we explain why. We explain that they are supporting Vladimir Putin, that they are opposing lowering prescription drug prices, that they are opposing a woman's right to her own bodily freedom, that they are opposing the right for people to marry who they love, that they are opposing the right of our veterans to get life-saving health care when they're exposed to toxic burn pits, that they're opposing the right to better working conditions, that they're opposing a living wage, they're supporting a minimum wage, and not even that. They want to keep wages suppressed as the lowest low, so they can pick your pockets and give it to billionaires and this weird cult oligarchy that they want to create. We're going to call that out here. If you want to support this type of media, go to patreon.com/MeidasTouch. It really does help. No pressure if you can't do it. But if you can support and become a member, you'll get exclusive content you can only get on Patreon. But most importantly, we're 100% accountable to you. It goes a long, long way. And oftentimes I get asked, wherever you are in the world, you can support us on patreon.com/MeidasTouch. Also, check out store.MeidasTouch.com for the best pro-democracy gear out there. We've got the MeidasTouch gear and so much more. And also, we have a new Legal AF. Of course, the new Legal AF live on Saturday at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. You can check out the new Legal AF. We'll talk about the implications of the chaos that ensued and so much more. And then make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and keep checking all of the videos. We're constantly uploading breaking news. And so make sure you click on all the videos. I think you'll like all the breaking news. We have great contributors here who spend a lot of time and a lot of hard work doing this. So if you want to watch Kevin McCarthy gaslight you, go ahead. That's not what I'm going to platform here at the MeidasTouch Network. We will keep you posted. We're so grateful for all of you, and we will see you next time on the MeidasTouch Network. I'm Ben Meiselas. I love you all so much. I'm so appreciative and grateful for each and every one of you. I can't tell you how much you all inspire me to do this work each and every day. Thank you. Hit subscribe. Until next time, I'm Ben Meiselas.